Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Kitty. As you can tell by the title, I'm going to be reading some stories that were sent in by you. So if you're interested in hearing some scary stories, make sure to keep watching. Just real quick, I wanted to show the necklace that I'm wearing. This was gifted to me a few Christmases ago by my grandmother. She's from Oklahoma, and one of our relatives made this necklace, and so I'm wearing it today to honor my grandmother. So very pretty medallion. So yeah, just throwing that out there. So let's get into these scary stories. This story comes to us from Browning, Montana. My mom is both from Browning and Rocky Boy. Unfortunately, she has passed away, but this one has to do with her. My nephew, we'll call him Bobby, was driving home after a party. It was about 2 or 3 in the morning. This is important to note that he is the only one in the car. He fell asleep at the wheel and his vehicle was partially submerged into some water. That's scary, you know, when you're really tired. Even when you're like taking a bath. Sometimes when I'm taking a bath, I'm just like, don't get too relaxed, Kitty, because you don't want to like fall asleep, you know. They say it only takes like a little bit amount of water to drown in, and then I don't know, I'm just a thinker, and stuff like this is very scary. The car was slowly sinking. My nephew said that he remembered Grandma, we'll call her Roberta, shaking him, trying to wake him up. Come on, my boy, wake up. You need to get out now. I don't think he was able to push the door open because of the water. His car was reported, so emergency vehicles were on the way. It was also reported that there were 2 people in the car. He was pulled out by emergency personnel, and they kept asking him where the second person was. Did they take off? Those kinds of questions. He kept saying there was no one else in the car. They looked inside of it, and finally it was determined that no one else was in it, that the shadows gave the illusion of a second person in it. Bobby did not mention his grandma waking him up to keep his head out of the water to the emergency personnel, but he did tell his mom, aka my sister. Wow, that's like a guardian angel. I really truly believe that our loved ones that pass away are with us all the time. I always get like vibes, you know, I always get, I don't know, intuition, like I always feel presence or their presence around. So I definitely feel like I'm never truly alone. I feel like there are our family members that truly look out for us even when they're not here with us physically anymore. So that's a good story. This story comes from British Columbia, Canada, the Chilcotin region. I hope I said that right. I hope I said it right. This was in the early 80s. We were moving back to our home base, which is very rural. As you know, we natives move with the seasons, camping, and that is what we were doing. There is a main ranch, which is about 30 miles from our meadow, and where we were moving from with our grandparents in a wagon and a few saddle horses. We got there in the late afternoon and unpacked. Our grandparents had to make another trip back to the ranch for the rest of our belongings and said they would be back tomorrow. So me, my younger brother, older sister, and our aunt, who was in her late teens, she was taking care of us until they returned. They left us 1 saddle horse. Our grandfather put a post in the middle of the field and told my aunt to tie the horse there with a very long rope so the horse could eat and wander a bit without taking off, and said to give him water before it got dark. When evening came, our aunt said, "Let's go bring the horse down to the creek so he can have some water before it gets too dark out." So off we went. She put me and my younger brother on the horse as she led it to the creek. After he had his fill, we went out to the field where grandfather said to tie him to the post with the long rope he left there. So my aunt did, and we headed back to the cabin as it was getting dark out. Inside, my aunt was making the beds for us, getting the wood stove going, and making sure we had enough firewood for the night. Then all of a sudden, my aunt says, "You hear that?" "No," we said. She listens. She says, "Listen, I heard something at the front door. Listen." We froze, with our ears wide open, listening. She then walks toward the door and opens it fast. Right in front of the door, the horse head was right there by the door when she opened it. She freaks out and says, "Who tied the horse right there by the door? We just tied him up in the field." The horse was tied to a nail that was right by the front door of the cabin. We all didn't know what to think. So she gets us all to go as a group back to tie the horse up. Once she ties the horse again, we head for the cabin, and it's getting even darker now. Back inside, she's telling us where our bed is. There is only lamps, candles for light, no power or plumbing. We start gathering around the table, and all of a sudden the horse snorts right at the front door again. We all heard that. My aunt went and opened the door, and there the horse was tied again to the nail. I got chills. Oh god, that's crazy, that's crazy. They're little kids alone with their aunt who is in her teens, while the grandparents left for the day. They're coming back tomorrow, and it's nighttime, and they're in the middle of nowhere by themselves, and this is happening. Ugh. Now we were all freaking out. She tells me and my younger siblings to get into our beds, and she covers us with a lot of blankets and says stay there until we get back. My aunt and older sister bring the horse back to the field and tie him up. Once my aunt got back to the cabin, she loaded up the rifle and went outside and started shooting rounds into the air. My little brother was so afraid, he was right asleep. Every noise I heard that night kept me on edge, and I also fell asleep shortly after. Keep in mind, this is a very rural area, no neighbors for 30 miles, maybe more. So he ends it right there, but later on, months go by, and I asked him, like, when can I hear the rest of the story? Because I originally wanted to put this story into just one video, but it didn't work out that way. Anyway, he emailed me back, and this is what he wrote. So the ending of that incident is we don't know who it was. A little backstory here on this incident and other incidents that had happened to us growing up. We were told that it was a wild man. They would always play tricks on you, always when it was getting dark or you could only see their figure. They would run over your path in front of you, down in the bushes. All you'd see is a figure of a person. Seemed they got a kick out of scaring you. They'd never hurt you. They'd knock on your window or even open the door at night if it wasn't locked. We had no electricity, only lamps. So all you'd see is a figure of someone or hear the footsteps only. The dogs wouldn't even bark, which was weird. So as we grew up, we later learned that these wild men are actually war deserters from the US, people running from the law, etc. To this day, I still hear stories from friends that say they were out hunting way back in the country and they seen someone walk across the road in front of them in the middle of nowhere. We all knew about these wild men growing up. My aunt, who is married to a white guy, never believed us. One summer we were camped at our family's fishing grounds, which was at least 4 years ago. My aunt's husband, a white guy, got up early and had his coffee in the travel trailer. He finally seen a guy sitting at the campfire. The guy got up and walked through the camp, up the river from our camp. Finally, he believed us in our stories. They'd never let you see their face. It was always dark enough to where you couldn't make out their facial features. My aunts have a lot of stories about these kind. Hope you enjoy. Wow, I can't remember if we got any other stories from Canada, but Canadians, First Nations people, you are more than welcome to share your stories here. I'm going to read one more and then you'll have to wait for the next video. This last story for this video is called Running with the Wind. It's a very short one, but I'm still going to read it. My dad was a truck driver driving on the Navajo Nation headed to Salt Lake City in the early 70s. This was in the early morning, around 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning. He was traveling by himself. He was wide awake because he would sleep during the day and travel at night. As he was driving, he looked outside the window and there was something running with his truck. Every time he slowed down, the figure would follow, like Simon Says. My dad said it followed him for about 4 or 5 miles and then it just disappeared. That's creepy. Creepy. Ugh. I got chills just reading that story. That is it for today. Thank you guys so much that sent in your stories. And if you or someone you know, or you know someone's story, please do not hesitate to share your story. Go ahead and send it to this email right here, and I will try my best to get to it as soon as I can. Let's keep these scary story videos going, so make sure to share yours. We'll see you in the next one, and don't forget to like this video if you really liked it, because it really helps out my channel.